Welcome to the Milk and Honey with Lemon podcast. I'm your host, Lemon Price, creator of the Holy Girl Habits, wife and mama, and certified life and leadership coach who turned away from corporate life to embrace kingdom leadership. This podcast is for Christian women feeling the weight of their divine callings, grappling with doubts of their leadership abilities, and searching tirelessly for biblically grounded guidance who want to step confidently into their roles as radiant kingdom leaders. Inside, we're going to traverse from those feelings of uncertainty and overwhelming searches, moving toward firm biblical leadership, empowering you to steward your gifts, and showing you that you indeed have what it takes. So, sister, grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea, and let's dive in together. Welcome back to another episode of the Milk and Honey podcast with Lemon. I am so excited because I have my friend Vera Jimenez here. She is amazing, y'all. Wait till I read this bio and then this episode is going to make so much sense. So Vera here is an award-winning meteorologist at KTLA 5 News. She's part of the evening news team Monday through Friday. She has several awards and recognitions, multiple Emmys, and Golden Mics. Y'all, that is just a snippet of her bio. Ready? She has an online health and wellness business that focuses her passion of helping people feel their best. She believes that when we are mentally and physically healthy, we are at our best. Are you ready for this? She's also in Rotary. She's a board member at the Boys and Girls Club of the LA Harbor. She's active with multiple nonprofits in the area, including the Richstone Family Center. She received her meteorologist certificate from Mississippi State University, and then she graduated cum laude from California State University, Long Beach in religious studies and got her AA from Santa Ana Community College. She was born in Mexico and raised in Garden Grove, California. She is the last of 6 kids raised by a single mom after her dad passed when she was only 3, and she and her husband, Brian, have a dog named Rufus. When she's not working or volunteering, she practices physical and mental fitness through various forms of exercise and meditation. Y'all, she does so much. She's amazing. And I'm so excited that she's here. So thank you for being here, Vera.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I'm so excited to be here because this is like a really cool podcast.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I am just blown away when I look at everything that you accomplish during the day. And so I would love for you to tell me how it is that you get through Monday to Friday with all of these things on your plate.
First of all, it sounds like a lot, but it isn't. I know people and women that do a lot more. But yes, you try. You do your best to get through the day. And one of the things that I always have to remind myself, because you don't always wake up out of the bed going, woohoo, let's do it. Let's take on the day. You know what I mean? Some days there's a lot on the plate and you start to get a little bit overwhelmed. And so I just remind myself that, first of all, I think the power of prayer is really important. And that's a big part of my day. And gratitude. I start my day with a walk. My dog and I go for a walk. And that's the thank you, Lord, for getting me to this day. And I just ask that He continue to guide my steps and to continue to guide my journey. And that's generally the way I start off. And I remind myself that you don't always wake up motivated. Motivation is like any other endeavor in your life. You have to physically motivate yourself. I spend time on my social media posting motivational thoughts and ideas and pictures and things that are fun and uplifting, not just for the people that are part of the community, but also for myself, because motivation is something that you have to work at every day, because you don't, like I said, you don't wake up being a cheerleader every day. And so I always say, in the absence of motivation is discipline. And so discipline is showing up when you don't want to, doing the work when you don't want to, muddling through it, because sometimes you do. Sometimes it's just a muddle through, but you get it done. And at the end of the day, you showed up and you did the best that you could. And some days you knock it out of the park. And some days you do struggle, but that's just part of life. And everybody feels that way. I don't know anybody that doesn't wake up with self-doubt. I don't know anyone that doesn't wake up sometimes going, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? That's just natural. And at 50 years old, like now I get that. Like now I completely understand that. And those are the moments that you have to embrace and push through because that's where the growth is. It's like physical activity. You know, you that last rep, the one that hurts, the one that's you don't think that you can get through, that's the one that you have to do because at that point, at that moment, that's where the growth happens, both mentally and physically. And it's the same thing with your mental health. Does that make sense?
Yes, I love that so much because yeah, that's something I try to like help with my kids all the time. I'm like, you got to do the things every single day. I've got my puppy. She likes to go for a walk every morning too. And we do 2.5, 3 miles in the morning because it's great. She's very high energy. And so it knocks her out. That's why she's asleep right now. It's beautiful. And even though we walked probably like 5 hours ago, she's still asleep. It's beautiful. But she's gotten so used to the routine of that's what we're doing. On days when I don't feel like it, she's a lunatic until I take her out. And it forces me to go and do the thing, even if I don't feel like it, if it's raining, if it's cold, whatever it is. She's like, nope, like you better get up, like we're going. And it forces me to stay very disciplined when the motivation isn't there.
So important. And I think that goes for all aspects of our life and everything that we do in learning new skills. I'm new to swimming. I decided when I was 49 that I was going to learn how to swim so that I could swim by the time I was 50, like swim in the ocean. And so that has been a long journey because I know that swimming sounds like something very fundamental and something. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Sorry about that. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Something that should be very simple and basic for anyone and everyone. And most people learn how to swim as children. But I didn't, I thought I knew how to swim. And then I was trying to swim, and someone that knows how to swim, like a swimming coach, saw me and he said, you're going to drown in the ocean. There's no way. Like you don't know how to swim. You need lessons. And what I didn't realize is that swimming takes a lot of coordination. I'm not a dancer. I have 2 left feet. I lack coordination. It's moving different parts of my body at the same time is not an easy thing for me. And stroking and kicking and breathing and doing all of these things in sync. I can't tell you what a challenge that is for me. And so the reason why getting in the pool or getting in the ocean is such a challenge for me, it's because it reminds me of something that I'm really bad at. But I have to remind myself that unless I keep going in and unless I keep showing up and doing the work, I'm never going to get better. And every time I go in the pool, someone says, oh, well, you need to do the stroke this way. And then all of a sudden, it's just like my brain goes, whoa, no, I've got, whoa. But it's life. And that's all of life.
I love that so much. I love it. I love the way you're like, yeah, it reminds me that I'm not good at this yet. But it's the yet, right? It's like but I have to keep doing it in order to get to the place that I want to go. And so how do you like handle the self-doubt or maybe procrastination that comes with working towards a big goal like this, right? Because you've got a big goal with this swimming, right?
Yes, I'm going to be swimming Alcatraz. And for those of you listening that don't know Alcatraz, Alcatraz is an island right off of the San Francisco Bay. And the distance isn't that far. It's only like 1.25 miles. The water is generally about maybe somewhere in the upper 50s, maybe the low 60s on a warm day. So it's a colder body of water. And there aren't a lot of waves, but what there is a lot of current. And this current can be a little bit strong. And because I'm not a strong swimmer, that's what is going to be the challenge for me is sighting, because first of all, you have to sight, which means you have to look up and make sure that you keep your target, and then you're fighting the current. And so those are the things that are challenging for me, and how I stay in it. It's just reminding myself of the goal. And more importantly, I think the other thing that I always remember is that when something like this shows up in my life, I always say, okay, there's a reason for it. God put this in my path. He either put it in my heart as a desire for me that he wants me to get, or he put this marker on my path because it's a journey that he needs me to travel. He's trying to show me something. He's trying to teach me maybe a lesson. And in order to understand what the lesson is and to serve, then that's what I have to do.
I love that. I love it so much. It's having like this really deep why that keeps you going. And I really love that you just have this beautiful sense of purpose in what it is you're doing. I think that's really important. So I have a question for you, right? Because this is a challenge. You're like, this is a thing that I'm not that great at, right? But I will get there. How do you deal with like setbacks when you're working toward a goal that you have?
I cry a little bit. Sometimes I do. Sometimes you sit in the car and you're like, you know what I mean? You do. Because it's frustration. You deal with the frustration and you have to accept it. You can't deny it. You have to accept it. You have to take it in. And I do that, but I don't allow myself to wallow in it that long. I like remind myself, okay, look, this is part of the journey. There isn't one of the things that I learned I reminded myself, and I think reading and talking to people that have more experience and that are coaches, or one of the big breakthroughs that I had was over not this summer, the last summer when I was still like learning how to swim. And I was sitting on the balcony watching a pond, so watching the water reflect. And then all of a sudden, I just remembered as I was sitting there watching, I remembered that it takes 10,000 hours to become proficient at something. And so then all of a sudden I realized, and I caught myself and I thought, who do you think you are? What ego is inside of you that you think that with 2 swims a week for the last 6 months is going to make you a good swimmer, a proficient swimmer, let alone a good swimmer. So then all of a sudden I realized, whoa, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, because you are nowhere near that 10,000 hours. And now you just have to start clocking the hours. You just have to start clocking the hours. And so that was my mind shift to where instead of counting laps, I just say, okay, I'm going in the pool and I'm going in for an hour. I'm going in the ocean and I'm going in for an hour. I'm going in for at least an hour. I'm going in for at least an hour. And, but you do. And I'd already been swimming for 5 or 6 months before all of a sudden, ding, the ego thing checked. And the only reason why I was able to do that is because years before I had taken the time to read and educate myself and to listen to experts and to do the mental work, because this isn't just about physical health. It's also understanding how your brain works, understanding. They used to say that a habit was formed if you did it for 30 days. And then they said, no, it really takes about 90 days to build a habit. So it's just understanding how your mind works and realizing that your brain is a muscle and you have to train it just like you do any other muscle. So training means making those connections, making the connection between the stroke and what it feels like. It's like the physicality of it and what it feels like in your brain. So that's why I find that physical health and mental health are like hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And if your goal is to be of service to your family, to your community, to the world, then you have to be mentally healthy. You can't give what you don't have. You can't give love if you don't have love for yourself.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. That was like a sermon right there. You were like, and it was so good because I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, there's this thing I started and I've probably put in maybe 2,500-ish hours into this thing. And I'm like, I'm not there yet. The whole time you're talking this is the internal monologue. And I'm like, man, I'm not there yet. But I'm like, I don't have to be because I haven't clocked the full 10,000, give or take, whatever that is.
Exactly.
And so thank you for that little reminder because I needed that reminder that I don't have to be an expert in things the minute I start them.
No.
And it's a commitment and a discipline, and it goes back to why you're doing it. And so I love this was so good. I needed this.
And so I think part of the education and the reading and the listening to podcasts like yours is that unless you do that part of the work as well, then you don't know. Like I would not, if I'd not listened to an expert say that years ago, I would have never had that epiphany. And I'd be beating myself up every time I got in the pool. I can't tell you how many days I cried when I was first getting in the pool and I couldn't get from one end to the other of the pool without and sinking to the ground and all of those things. So many days. And now I've swam in the ocean. I've swam over 2 miles in the ocean. So I've done it. Not beautifully, not gracefully, not perfectly, but I did it. And that was the goal. The goal was to get from one pier to the next pier and not die. And more importantly, just the reminding of myself that, look, God put this in my heart. So I'm not going to get eaten by a shark and I'm not going to die out there because that's not what my road is. This is not going to be the thing that kills me. And I know because it was ordained, if you will.
I love that. That's like being able to go for it all the way too, because you have a good relationship with the Father. And I think when you're in such good relationship, then you can take these really bold, beautiful steps to work towards something that God's already told you is for you, right? If He's promised you that it's for you, then it's for you. And that's, you're not going to get eaten by a shark.
And that's what people always ask me is like, how do you know? Because we've had a lot of shark sightings here off the Pacific where we live. And so it's like, aren't you afraid? I'm like, no, like you see stuff out there. And yes, every once in a while, something rubs against your leg and you're like, but then I go, okay, this isn't my day. Today is not the day. This is not how I'm going to go. I don't know how I'm going to go. I'm going to go when it's his decision, but I'm not shark bait.
All right. I love that. I'm not shark bait. Okay. My last question for you today is how do you balance the need for, because you're a highly driven woman, right? So how do you balance this go-getter attitude with also like resting?
I think, and this is something that I'm like having an issue with and I'm working on is the sleep thing because everybody says that you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And I don't normally get that. I get home between 12:15 and 12:30 every night. And I'm usually like by 6:30ish, I start waking up. And so trying to lengthen that has been difficult for me because I like to be at the gym by 8 o'clock, which means I need to get up, I need to walk the dog, I have to get my bag together, and I need to get the day starting. And so that is a challenge and something that I'm trying to work on. And the reason I'm able to work on is because I remind myself that in order for me to function and perform better, I need the rest. My body, my brain, everything needs to rest, because when you're resting, that's when you're healing. That's when your body repairs itself. That's when your brain makes those connections. That's when your body heals. And so in order to be better, not just for me, but for the people that I serve or that I want to serve, I've got to be the best version of myself. And so again, it just goes back to, what is the ultimate purpose? If you don't have to be of service to the world, you don't have to be of service to anybody but yourself and your family. And if that's what it is, then you have to remember is, how am I going to best serve them? And the way you serve them is by being the best of you. And that means nurturing your body and nurturing your mind. And that, for me, and everybody's definition is different, but for me, it's about nutrition that is going to serve me, and exercise and mental health that is going to serve me. And so that's why I think mental health and physical health for me are such an important part of my life, because I have an 81-year-old mother, 85-year-old mother, not 81, 85-year-old mother who still lives by herself. And I need to be mentally and physically able to help take care of her. She lives by herself in Garden Grove, where I grew up. But mentally, it's, in all honesty, I am being as transparent as I can possibly be. I don't have children. My mom is now 85. And sometimes I feel like I am a parent, yet I don't know how to parent, because God didn't give me children. And so I tried to make sense of it as, maybe this is why I wasn't supposed to be a mom, is because now I have this mom that I need to take care of who is turning into a child. And it's a very challenging balance, because she's still my mother and I have to respect her. But does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I need to be patient. And my mom was not a patient woman with us. And so I hold a lot of, I don't want to say resentment, but there's still hurt there from her not being very patient with me. And so I know what it feels like to not have someone be patient with you. And now I have to remember that. And instead of going, you weren't patient with me, so I'm not going to be patient with you, I have to remember and say, you weren't patient with me and I didn't like it. So now I need to give you grace. And so that is where that mental peace of mind I need to tap into that, so that then I can do that. And again, being honest and transparent, some days it works. And some days I'm like,
Oh, I get that. I so get that. I have two boys, and it's like you want to be so patient and give them the grace, right? My mother was not a patient person either. But then when they talk about Minecraft for the 477th time that afternoon, sometimes you're a little bit less patient. And we're human and we're flawed, and all we can do is just try to do better the next day. But I love that you're like, I have to be rested so I can do the things that God's called me to do. And we can't operate from a place of just go all the time. And I think as women, we try to do that.
Yeah, we can. And I think the other thing is that I think we need to be like personally responsible for our mental health and our physical health. Now, every time you turn around, someone wants to give you a pill for everything. Somebody wants to give you a pill for everything. And granted, there are those times when you need the pill, but I think most of the time we don't. Most of the time we just need to do the work. We need to do the physical work and the emotional work. You just need to, because our bodies were created so perfectly and so beautifully that all we have to do is nourish it properly and give it proper rest. And our bodies are miracle workers that can repair so much hurt and so much damage, and our brain is also part of that physical. If your brain isn't physically operating well, and those neurons and electrons aren't connecting, and those little synapses connections aren't getting to where they need to get, then you're not thinking properly. And that's why that is such an important part of my life, is because, and I think it should be a really important part, and stay away from the pills as much as you can so that you can be present and you can live and feel the changes that are happening both mentally and physically.
I love that because I'm a very crunchy person. And so I'm all herbal everything. And my youngest always says, I don't remember God putting a pharmacy in the Garden of Eden. And he said he gave us everything we needed. So I'm like, I love it. I love it. He's
So true.
hilarious. I feel so bad every time he's with a friend or something and they want to hit up a McDonald's or something. And my 9-year-old is, do you want to give me cancer? There's chemicals in the. I feel for anybody who interacts with my youngest because he's a special breed.
Yes. And, this is a reflection of you and how you're raising them. And you're raising them to realize that, that there is stuff in there that is going to, kill us. And it's really important, especially for children, because they say now that, I don't know if it was like 50%. I think they said 50% of children are suffering of obesity. They're obese, 50% of children. And it's the nutrition that we give them. And because they're not being nourished properly, we're not nourishing our children properly, they're not able to always think properly because our bodies are made of what we put in them. And so if we're putting things that aren't giving us health, then we can't think clearly. That's why kids don't want to go outside and play. That's why they're tired. That's why they don't think right, because they're not given the energy and the nutrition they need to make that work.
I love this. I'm going to bring you on again just to talk about how nutrition impacts our ability to accomplish things, right? Because I think listening to you talk, it just came like I'm seeing our whole food industry and pharmaceutical industry. And guys, I do not apologize for being the crunchy weirdo that I am, but I see them now as like a design of the enemy so we can perform at our highest and best and do the things that God has called us to do.
So true. That is very true.
Ooh, because I grew up in a very pharmaceutical heavy fast food environment.
How did you how did you make the change? That's fascinating.
Yeah, so it's very funny. My mom, her and I don't have a good relationship at all, or a relationship at all. We'll just be honest. And so my mom worked for a doctor my whole life. And so I remember when like the HPV vaccine came out and it was still experimental, like her coming home and just jabbing me with it in the kitchen and things like that. And then I was a hardcore athlete. I was cheerleading and dance at least 6 days a week for a solid like 5 to 6 hours a day.
Wow.
And so, of course, dinner would be done by the time I got home. And so it was always like stop at a drive-through or something. Like there was no meal prep. There was like none of that happening. And I don't know how my body functioned like that because now just the very thought of it makes like my arteries clog. So I'm like, I don't know how I did that. And so as soon as I kept up with some of that behavior in college, right? That's what I was used to. And then as I became like an adult, I'm like looking at our food ingredients. I'm like, this is gross, absolutely gross. And I think COVID probably really did a lot for my husband and I too, where we were like, this is incorrect. And of course, they're not vaccinated. None of us are vaccinated or any of those things. Cause I'm like, that scares me. It absolutely terrifies me. And it's so interesting to see. So my boys are not biologically mine. But we're the custodial. And so it's really interesting when they go for like their every other weekend visitation because she's very much, we're stopping at McDonald's and pizza and like all those kind of things. The behavior that Monday after they come back is so different. They are so tired. They are napping for 2-3 hours after school. We have behavior problems, all those things. And then as soon as they start eating my food again, we have no issues for like another 2 weeks. And so it's really fascinating. They don't want to play outside. They don't want to do anything. When they first come home, like they just want to sleep and they cannot function.
Fascinating.
Yes.
And so how was that transition from like in terms of when they're with their biological mom and they come back from eating the stuff that's not great, then is it challenging to get them to go from that to like now they're going to eat home cooked meals that are healthier and
And no, so thankfully, because we are the custodial, so that's what they're used to. And so they know a difference. Like when we pick them up on Sunday nights, they're complaining about stomach aches all weekend and headaches and all of these things. And they're like, I cannot wait to be home
oh, really?
because they can feel the difference in their body, which is really interesting to see how they're 9 and 11 and they're like, I can feel a difference in my body and I don't like how I feel.
Oh, that's so amazing that they're that in tune at that age. And how long have they been with you?
So my husband's been the custodial parent since my youngest was 2 and he's 9 and a half.
Wow. So you've pretty much raised them.
Yes. Yeah, so that's what they're used to, and they're used to we're very much on big on going out and playing and doing all those things. They go on another 2.5, 3 mile walk with me at night when I take the puppy again, so she sleeps through the night. They do a ton of goal setting in the beginning of the year, and we break it up into like intellectual and spiritual and social and physical so they can set these goals. And they're up on a poster board in their room so they can look at their goals every single day and work toward them. But it's doing the things that they don't want to do in the times that they don't feel like doing it. But then also, I know that we get back really late on Sundays. And so I know that Monday is going to be a wash and to rest.
And do they go, they don't go every weekend?
No.
Oh, okay. That's good. Then that lapse time when they have to go down and recover isn't very long or very
Yeah.
often.
Yeah. So they're only there for like 4 days out of the month. And so I've got 2 extra days that they're not really functioning members of society, but that's fine. We give them the grace on those days. I make sure their laundry's done and their room's clean. So that's not something they have to think about at all. It's really interesting to see how the food that they eat has a big difference in their motivation and their behavior and just the way they perform at school. If they have a test on the first day after they get back, it's usually not a good result.
Oh,
And so it's very interesting to see the difference.
and I'm so glad that you're teaching them that early because as they grow up and even with their friends, they're becoming examples and they're having an impact on their little community and their group of friends. And I think that's amazing. I think
Uh,
that's so awesome. Good for
Well,
you.
thank you. And it's really from having conversations with women like you where I then get to go back and to pour into my kids and where the women listening to this get to go back and pour into their kids and do something different that they haven't been taught. And so I'm just so grateful that you were here and to
Well, thank you
share.
for having me.
Yeah, it's so good. And so if you could leave them with one final piece of advice when it comes to like discipline or motivation or goal setting, what would it be?
Um, I think the most important thing is we talk about self love, and it's the same thing. Self love and like to pouring into ourselves mentally and physically is really important because unless we can if we can't take personal responsibility for our mental health and wellness, then we aren't going to be present for those that we love, for the people that are most important to us. And so I think as family members and especially moms, and again, I'm not a mom, but I have friends that are moms and I see how much they pour into their families. They strip themselves of everything they have. And then they're running ragged and they don't understand why. You have to take care of yourself so that you can be the best that you can be for your children. And that means being patient and giving them grace. And I didn't really truly understand that until I got to this point with my mom. And now I realize that I need to do this not just for me, but so that I can extend it to her. So I think just remembering to physically and mentally take care of ourselves, take personal responsibility for our physical and mental health, and educating ourselves about that. That is truly, I think, the key to everything. Because when you feel your best, you're present for the world. You're present to do the journey that you were put on this earth to take.
I love that. Thank you so much, Vera, for being here. I seriously, I'm going to have to bring you back to talk about health and nutrition and how it relates to all of these fun things, because that's a
Thank
whole
you.
other topic we could dive into. So
It is. It
it
is.
just,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And until next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Milk and Honey with Lemon podcast. I am so grateful you were here. I hope this episode has helped you move from feelings of doubt and uncertainty towards stepping confidently into your God-given leadership role, fully equipped with biblical wisdom. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to reach and inspire more Christian women leaders just like you. Don't forget to share your takeaways, post it on Instagram, tag me anywhere you're on social media, and I'll see you next week.